It is the start of our Friday night stream here live from the Wave Now studio. Want to appreciate all of you joining us from wherever you are, whatever device or platform you're joining us as we wrap up this week here in Wave Country, taking a live look at a calm street corner in Corden and making the most perhaps you all were earlier in the day when the sun was out, much milder, nicer temperatures. I hope everyone has plans for the weekend to make the most out of that, whether that's a nice bike ride, a jog, whatever you fancy. Should be a wonderful day to do that. Appreciate your time, folks. Again, I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Now studio for tonight's as we do sort of summary wrap up, but also a deeper dive into some of the stories we cover here in News Extra. We'll begin actually with this case that has developing layers to it, and that is the deadly shooting outside of the club in Shively, because investigators are revealing that, there was a number worth honing in on. We were reading a little bit of that in the initial arrest reports, but just in case, that was, among all the different information we were getting, there was a shocking number of shots that were fired in this case outside of this club in Shively. Police actually played an audio recording for us capturing that morning, February 2nd. You can hear 60 shots in less than 23 seconds. We've reported and let you know there were 5 people arrested, 3 of them of violent criminal history. And even police, the multiple partner agencies involved, described this as a coordinated, targeted attack. A Shively officer today who talked to Wave News on Record said it was, in their mind, an assassination. 26-year-old Rodney Parker gunned down as people were waiting for him outside of Club 7. The last of the dozens of shots were fired at close range. Investigators still are not revealing that much more about their case, except there's some connection between the victim and the accused killers. They're not saying how many guns they think were involved specifically in what happened or whose fingers pulled the trigger, but the investigation, again, still ongoing. We did hear from LMPD Deputy Chief Emily McKinley, who said she wanted to make it clear you did not have to be the person to fire the weapon or drive the car to be wanted in an act of violence and be sought after in a police investigation like this.
If you bought the gun, if you provided money for this homicide, you're going to get charged. If you took someone in, you're going to get charged. If you hid some evidence for somebody or a gun or took a gun or some clothing, you are wrapped up in this as well. And that is the message that everyone needs to hear who knows people and is participating in group violence such as this.
Again, 3 of the 5 suspects we now know that have been put in jail. They all have previous records for deadly crimes at ages 18, 19, and 20. When we asked about them being back out on the street, one officer who did talk to our David Mattingly this afternoon did describe it as frustrating in their mind. So an ever-evolving situation. What comes of however prosecutors decide to approach holding them accountable in court, will be there to let you know of those decisions, whatever those may be. The Wave News team was going to stay on top of this story for sure. We're going to look now with our eyes at Spencer County, and this will be the sort of part where we're looking at education-related news. But in essence, if you had not seen the images before, we were able to kind of be there out in Spencer County as students who we talked to and saw on camera said they wanted to stand up for their teachers and other school employees that they fear are going to lose their jobs because of this budgeting error that we have been reporting on here in the newsroom. This week, we had heard the school board vote on its plan that's going to cut 5% of the district's jobs to keep personnel costs within 80% of the total expenses. That decision is tied to the $1.5 million budgeting error that was because of an inaccurate state revenue projection, but the district leadership has said that on the record, that was an inaccurate projection. We did talk to a recent graduate of Spencer County Schools who was at the walkout. She says teachers are too important to be treated as just positions on sheets of paper instead of the people they are.
Teachers are important. Period. Like, simple fact. Yeah, and that's the thing about small town Spencer County. Everyone's there for everyone. And it's very important what they're doing because those teachers deserve everything.
Spencer County Schools Superintendent says the job cuts are going to be a difficult but necessary step forward for the sake of the district's health. Still unclear which positions are going to be cut. And aside from the budget error, the district is also dealing, as it puts it, with rising operational cost issues. So there we have the story that we will be following with Spencer County, perhaps closer to home on a grander scale with much more money implicated is what's happening with the budget crisis at JCPS. But today we were there as JCPS Superintendent Dr. Brian Yearwood. He said he wanted to assure families the district is on its way out of this deep financial hole, this chasm and the crisis. And yes, they've had to make the job cuts. We've been there to confirm the reporting that they're going to close schools. But Yearwood saying district leaders in their mind are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we were there at today's State of the District address. Yearwood telling the crowd they've had to make difficult decisions to address the $188 million budget deficit. And yes, his message talked about a lot of how hard the last couple of months have been. He wanted to talk about a sense of hope as well. The district's cuts total about $132 million. Yearwood says district leaders are still negotiating up to $30 million in additional savings. He asked families to give him time as he tries to work and ensure every student can continue growing within JCPS schools. Yearwood also talked about they're dealing with another issue with their aging schools within the district. He says more than 80% of district facilities are actually more than 50 years old. And yes, there are plans to upgrade and rebuild schools. However, Yearwood pointed out JCPS's current deferred maintenance backlog is estimated at about $2.5 billion. So this is the part where we get to dive in a little deeper. And you get to hear some of the interviews. We just sometimes there's not much time we get to really have during the regular newscast, but this is an opportunity on a live stream so you can hear the reporting and the interviews we're able to get. And we're going to play a bit of some of these conversations we had after that official state address was delivered. The first is going to be from Dr. Yearwood. And the line of questioning here is about if there, unfortunately, are going to be any more job cuts down the road, short-term, midterm, long-term, and then also about now that we heard what this audit firm on Wednesday discussed about, the structural issues with the lack of this reporting and progress reports on the finances, that if the district is ready to change governance rules to ensure that there is going to be a midterm check on the finances.
Is the district done with job cuts?
I would say at this point, cutting jobs are very difficult, and I would love to say that we're done with job cuts. However, we have to make sure that our budget deficit is handled. We're still negotiating about $30 million. And, as we work with the unions through bargaining, we hope to see favorable outcomes. So again, we want to make sure that that is definitive when it comes to the end and we are able to actually say we've negotiated and we have arrived.
Wednesday's audit said the budget lacked formal review and governance. Is there anything you'll be doing to change that?
Absolutely. We're going to take the results of the audit and we will be moving to putting, I call it, practices in place, protocols in place, making sure that our methodology that's used throughout our financial department adheres to sound practice. So again, and that's why we did the forensic audit, because for me, we wanted to find out what caused this. Why do we have an audit? And now that we have some results, we will move to, I call it, strengthen things and make sure that we have made every effort to address every component of the audit.
So there you have the sound we did get from Dr. Yearwood. Now, in the same vein about setting up new rules to ensure this kind of deficit doesn't happen again, we did also talk to JCPS Board Chair Dr. Corey Scholl. The question prefacing what you're going to hear from Dr. Scholl is if he agreed with the findings from the audit on Wednesday and if they expect to make these structural changes to make sure that they're aware of what the numbers are on budgets, finances, their expenses, what they're able to access moving forward.
We've been saying that for years. I hope that my colleagues on the Board of Education will join me in insisting that the board receives comprehensive information concerning financial matters and concerning all decisions that we are tasked to vote on. Unfortunately, there have been times over the years where other audits have come forward. They have warned that there was not comprehensive information submitted to the board, and there was not the appetite to insist that happened. And so hopefully with this newest audit, once more underscoring the fact that the Board of Education does not always receive comprehensive information, hopefully that we can foster a partnership between the Board of Education and management to ensure that it happens going into the future.
So there's one perspective, obviously, from leaders who have, the stakes before them that involve, the students, their families, and of course the employees who are involved. And what you're going to hear next is sort of the perspective of other different stakeholders within the district, and that would be two education leaders. They each represent their own factions of unions. It's the JCTA Union President Maddie Shepard and AFSCME 411 Support Staff Union President Nicole Humphrey. But here they are talking about the impact budget cuts are going to have beyond what most people at least automatically think of would be the ones negatively hurt, which would be the classroom teachers who help schools run. Here's a little bit of their assimilating and trying to process what is going to be some very serious consequences likely for some of the school staff.
AFSCME represents all of the clerical staff, the school cafeteria workers, our paraeducators, our instructional assistants, and also our school nurses and many others. So yes, this will be a huge impact to those front-facing positions in our schools. Again, that support our parents, our teachers, and our students.
And everybody that works in a school is an educator, no matter what your title is, from the bus driver, all the way to the instructional assistants, teachers, everyone.
Yes.
And so when schools have to tighten their belts because of, the cuts that are happening, everyone feels that. Whether it's, a teacher that's losing a position or instructional assistant or a bookkeeper, this whole school system is affected. So we're still, kind of talking to our members and muddling through how schools are dealing with those effects. And we're trying to mitigate the loss that students will experience as much as we can.
Well, coming up after this break on the Wave News Extra live stream, I want to make sure this is a story that we can break down with a little bit of breathing room and pace, but a credit to our newsroom team, because this is the case now involving federal charges against a retired Air Force major and the pretty serious allegations that he was defrauding the U.S. government by training Chinese fighter pilots. Much more to get into on that. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back with this and much more breakdown previews as we're working well into the night for original stories of what's going on in your neck of the woods, our neck of the woods. We'll be right back here in the Now studio after this. Welcome back into Wave News Extra here in the Now studio, folks. As promised, going to tee you up for the reporting that we have, at least everything we've been able to find so far on this, publicly available data or that we've requested in a pretty salacious case. Because in text messages with co-conspirators, according to federal prosecutors, retired Air Force Major Gerald Brown had one goal: fly fighter jets again. Brown now faces charges that he apparently defrauded the United States government, violated export controls by training Chinese fighter pilots. It's a 48-page criminal complaint that says Brown was a Top Gun in his prime. He'd been an aircraft commander of a squadron that was part of the U.S.'s nuclear forces, but he flew to China at least 30 times, prosecutors say, working for UPS as a cargo pilot flying MD-11s. That is the model of plane that went down in the deadly UPS crash just last year, for reference. But after getting into a fight with another pilot, UPS fired him. The FAA revoked his pilot's license just months later. Brown found work, though, apparently as a trainer, including working for 2 defense contractors training U.S. fighter pilots. Our troubleshooter, Mark Stevens, looked into this case as one of many connected to apparent Chinese efforts to learn U.S. military secrets. Here is Mark's report.
The criminal complaint provides extensive messages Brown sent to 2 co-conspirators regarding making plans to work for the Chinese. It references one message where Brown says he is ready to live in China, can't wait to fly a fighter again. In another message, he wanted to work another 5 years, then retire in China, Vietnam, or Thailand. He said, "All I care about now is going fast again and pulling G's." In the messages, one of the co-conspirators shared a photo of Brown standing in front of an A-10 Warthog wearing a U.S. flight suit. Brown was getting a passport and a visa and making arrangements to sell his Jeffersonville condo on Spring Street to retire in Asia. He flew to China in December 2023. One of his main contacts was a Chinese citizen named Su Bin. Bin had been sentenced to nearly 4 years in a U.S. prison back in 2016. He pleaded guilty to a conspiracy to hack U.S. defense company computer systems to steal military technical data. Bin had also been affiliated with the Test Flying Academy of South Africa. In January, the government filed court records to fully seize 2 shipping containers converted into training simulators to train the Chinese military on anti-submarine warfare and airborne warning systems. They had been intercepted in Singapore on the way to China in 2024 from that company. The court records also say the South African company hired Western pilots to send to China as military trainers.
This is not the only thing that Mark was looking into and the troubleshooters team was wanting to corroborate in our search for the information. We know Brown is being held in jail until he's being transferred back to D.C. That's where his case is going to be heard. He did fly back to the U.S. in early February. Now, the criminal complaint says he lied to customs officers about the work he did in China. He didn't mention the work he was doing training fighter pilots. So then the question is, why did he come back? Well, again, before he left China, he hadn't been able to complete those renovations to the condo he was trying to sell. Prosecutors say they found a fake passport, fake cash, and a defense contractor ID when they searched that same condo after he was arrested. Brown's next court hearing challenging that detention, that hasn't been scheduled yet. When we do get some information, we'll make sure to let you know what is the latest. And some updates, we know events honoring late civil rights leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Those have been going on for much of the afternoon today. There were services inside the Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters in Chicago. Members of Jackson's family, they've been there greeting people who wanted to stop by for the viewing. Jackson died last week at 84 after he had a battle with a rare brain disease. There's going to be a public viewing again at the Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters in Chicago, which is the organization he founded. But Monday, he is set to receive the same honor inside the South Carolina State Capitol. It's a public service scheduled for that evening, with another then apparently taking place later in Washington, D.C. Governor Andy Beshear asking Kentucky lower flags to have staff as Jackson's body is being transported through interstates that are going to be within the Commonwealth on its way for this viewing in South Carolina. At this point in tonight's live stream, I want to take a chance to preview the things we're working on because we are working even into Friday night. Julia Richardson, part of that Wave News Night team. And Julia, we always are checking in on this original reporting that we do. You've been working on something actually in particular. And so just for the folks at home to understand what the story is you are working on, it has to do sometimes when you're trying to make the most out of tragedy. In this case, it's the story of a double murder that then turned into a layer of, I guess, the justice that this family just will never receive because of what happened. But talk to us about the woman you met this afternoon, because they're on a mission now to sort of stand up for at least survivors of domestic violence and for all the people who have been impacted by that.
Yeah, Jose. So basically, to just go over the story, this was back in July of 2025. Santia Simmons and Amaya Cox were killed in a house in Shively. It was a double murder. The person that was suspected of doing it was Santia's boyfriend. He was on the run and missing for about a week, and then officers found him with a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. So back in July, maybe a week or so after this happened, I did talk to Santia's mom, Sonia Parker, and she told me back then, you know, she's working on something. She's trying to turn her grief into action, because for her, I mean, obviously it was her daughter, but Amaya Cox was also engaged to her son. She had met the Bradford Ward several times. So for her, she felt like she lost 3 members of her family, not just one. But she has been working on this organization. She's calling it Santia Strong, and it's to help survivors of domestic violence. So I talked to her, and then she's also roped in some of her other family members. So Santia's aunt and her cousin. So yeah, they're just trying to, obviously it's a horrible situation on all ends, but they're basically trying to, you know, help survivors of domestic violence, but also abusers. And because they're basically saying the system has failed everyone in this situation. And if even LeBradford himself had gotten the help he needed before, all 3 of them might still be here.
People don't realize that there are ways out, that there is a way to live without domestic violence. And that's what we're wanting to do, because until someone changes it, we're just going to keep doing the same things.
And to your point there, Julia, it seems like it is a family affair, because we heard from, I believe that was Santia's aunt.
Yeah.
And so coming up, since you're going to have the full report for us tonight at 11, what is something else in that conversation that you think the folks at home could look forward to you all discussing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely what their hopes are for the organization, because they're starting small, but they really want this to be a widespread thing. And also for them, I mean, all 3 of them have gone through some sort of domestic violence themselves. So for them, it's really trying to raise awareness of, hey, this happens more than you think. And they've even had people that have reached out to them after the fact of, you know, Santia and Amaya's situation, and saying, hey, I've been there too. So yeah, basically what they're trying to do on a broad scale, and also just, you know, raising awareness for how much it happens that we might not even hear about or realize.
For sure. All right. Well, and because we know there's still time to sort of put the final edits, we always like to make sure everything, you know, the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and all of that. So we want to let Julia know we appreciate her time. We're going to keep the live stream going. But Julia, thanks for popping in. Reminder, you can always connect with Julia beyond just when we're there on Wave News at 11. Julia is also easy to reach on social media in particular, right?
Facebook, it's Julia Richardson Wave News. I'm trying to post more there now. Sure. I also have Instagram. I've been trying to post my reels for some of the stories. So, and that's just Julia Richardson. Well, I think it's _Julia.Richardson_. Sorry, that's a little bit complicated.
Sometimes there's a lot of information to have together at the same time. But no, Julia, thank you so much for your time. And we're going to keep it going with some more updates from right here in the Wave Now studio. I want to appreciate Julia's time. Let's move on to the next item here. And this investigation now, maybe you've seen, again, our push alerts from the Wave Digital team about what this was, because police say there's a suspect that they found. He's in custody because a man was found dead in Old Louisville. It's something that happened around 3:30 yesterday afternoon on West Ormsby Avenue. Police say they found a man inside an apartment they described as being, quote, obviously deceased, so that he was dead and there was no doubt about it. Charles Gerlach was taken into custody, charged with murder, abusing a corpse, and torturing a dog even. The arrest report, we read a copy. It says Gerlach was apparently found having jumped out of a 4th-floor apartment. When officers got in to look at the apartment that he jumped out of, they, one, found a Chihuahua dead in the sink before then finding a dead man stuffed behind a mattress in the closet. So pretty grisly stuff that is being described there. Police say that Gerlach apparently admitted to stabbing this person, moving his body, this man's body, to, quote, get it out of the way, as he was then going to attack, stab, and drown the dog. The gory details continue there. Once Gerlach is out of the hospital, he will then be booked into Metro Corrections. I'm bringing you back here into the main studio, where there'll be much more to discuss. We're going to play for you is some more sound about this cold case that was solved. If you're familiar with what the details were from out of Bowling Green from 1996, the search for Morgan Violi. We're going to play a little bit of what prosecutors are saying they've been able to uncover, who they're going to hold responsible when these charges move forward with the trial. So we're going to reset to talk about that story and much more in this next part of the Wave News Extra live stream after we come back from this break and back into the Wave Now studio. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back into the Wave News Extra live stream, and police have charged a suspect in this cold case. And let's see if I can restart the video so we can have that as a device for you all to have as a reference point. Let's see if I can get it back to the start there. I'm going to try and reset that. Okay. But the picture is what's key here, because that is a picture in this cold case out of Bowling Green, the 1996 kidnapping and murder of little Morgan Violi. She was just 7 at the time this happened. And 62-year-old Robert Froberg now charged with kidnapping resulting in death in this case, because federal agents and prosecutors say they believe they know he and who is responsible thanks to new DNA testing. The prosecutors talking today in a press conference saying that Froberg apparently admitted he pulled off I-65 in Bowling Green to find drugs. He turned into apartments just off Scottsville Road where he spotted Morgan, that Froberg admitted to abducting her, throwing her in the back of the van, and then even going as far as to say that with her in the back that they went south until he pulled off the interstate in Tennessee, all the while Morgan was fighting, screaming, resisting. Froberg admitting that while in Tennessee, he parked the van in a part that was by the woods, climbed to the back to cover her hands with his mouth. Pretty disturbing, startling, scary stuff that Froberg, as prosecutors were describing it, that he admitted he ultimately caused Morgan to die in the van. I want to play a little bit more for you about what prosecutors had to say about this point and all the work that was done to get to charge a suspect and a defendant in this investigation and trying to find justice for Morgan's family.
Froberg admitted that he pulled off I-65 in Bowling Green to find drugs. He turned into the Colony Apartments just off of Scottsville Road where he spotted Morgan. Froberg admitted to abducting Morgan and throwing her in the back of the van. Froberg admitted that with Morgan in the back of the van, he traveled south until he pulled off the interstate in White House, Tennessee. All the while, Morgan fought. She screamed. She resisted. Morgan was a fighter. Froberg admitted that in White House, he parked the van in a wooded area. He climbed in the back. He covered Morgan's hands with his mouth. Froberg admitted that he ultimately caused Morgan's death in that van. Froberg admitted to leaving Morgan's body in the woods, traveling south where he stayed with the nurse in Huntsville for approximately a week before traveling back north to Pennsylvania, where he was ultimately arrested on August 21st, 1996, for fleeing the Alabama prison system. Based on these alleged facts, Robert Scott Froberg is charged with violating 18 U.S. Code Section 1201, which is a federal statute for kidnapping resulting in death. That statute prescribes one of two penalties, either life in prison or the death penalty. For years, the community has feared that Morgan's abductor lives silently among us. We feared that one of our kids might be next. I hope that this announcement today can give some level of comfort to this community, my hometown, that Froberg has been in the custody of the Alabama Department of Corrections since 1996, where he currently is today.
And to this point, we don't know when Froberg is going to be transferred into federal custody to face this specific new charge. Will likely be an explosive, emotional trial process, but we'll see if it even comes to that. But in a case that broke this cold case wide open, this information, something we'll certainly be following here in the Wave newsroom. Branching out to a story that is kind of more the national perspective, but something in the political sphere that's been getting a lot of attention because this was now the second of a pretty long deposition with, in this case, former President Bill Clinton answering questions from congressional lawmakers as they investigate the Epstein files, convicted sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein there. In this case, the former president and his attorneys, the other parties going back and forth before agreeing to the deposition in New York, where we did see former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton previously deposed there. NBC White House correspondent Monica Alba has some details about what ultimately happened after this deposition wrapped up.
For the first time in more than 40 years, a former president testifies before lawmakers. Bill Clinton facing the House Oversight Committee in its investigation of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
No one's accusing anyone of any wrongdoing, but I think the American people have a lot of questions, and our House Oversight Committee is committed to getting answers.
He's been very cooperative, and he's actually answering the questions fairly. I mean, to the best of his ability. He has not taken a pass on pleading the fifth for any questions.
And from his first words, the former president set the tone for his deposition, saying, quote, "I know what I saw and more importantly, what I didn't see. I know what I did and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and did nothing wrong." Bill Clinton's name and picture shows up hundreds of times in the Epstein documents the Justice Department released. Photos with Epstein on Epstein's plane and with Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. The former president has acknowledged traveling on the plane while doing work for the Clinton Global Initiative, and he's never been accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein. Many high-profile names appear in the files, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Bill Gates, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and President Trump, whose name and photo come up thousands of times. He has said he ended his friendship with Epstein years before the late felon was convicted of sex crimes. Democrats say Republicans set a precedent today by deposing former President Clinton. And now the sitting president needs to answer questions too.
This investigation will not be complete until we bring President Trump in to answer questions under oath. I'm hopeful that Chairman Comer will have the courage to move us in that direction.
Republicans push back, saying the survivors they've spoken with haven't implicated the president in anything.
Today's deposition comes a day after former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton answered lawmakers' questions for 6 hours. She told lawmakers she had never met or had any connection with Epstein and knew nothing about his crimes. Monica Alba, NBC News, Washington.
Coming back closer to wave country, as if you can believe we're rounding the stretch to get close to Kentucky Derby 152 this week. Churchill Downs reporting its own strong financial results for the year 2025. Good news for the iconic racetrack company, Churchill Downs Racetrack, reporting it saw revenue increases about $8.4 million for the full year. Operating profits also climbing nearly $1 million. Churchill Downs Incorporated says it's expanding its footprint even more with more gaming venues, historic racing machines. Marshall Yards Racing and Gaming opened this week in Calvert City is what they mentioned. The company also investing up to $200 million in a place called Rockingham Grand Casino in New Hampshire. Now, this is video referencing perhaps positive momentum for Churchill Downs, not as positive, in fact, bleaker for Papa John's, co-headquartered here in Louisville and Atlanta. The pizza chain planning to close hundreds of restaurants after a tough fourth quarter, 300 underperforming stores actually by the end of 2027. The company hasn't disclosed those specific locations just yet. But Papa John says it wants to cut about 7% of its corporate workforce. The company has more than 500 of those corporate level employees here in Louisville. After this break, everyone, we're going to be back with the last bits of stories we want to share with you on this live stream in the Now studio, including some 911 sound that has to do with the story when we first broke it to you about a woman who was hurt by a garbage truck when the workers allegedly did not know she was there, but then that led to some serious bleeding and injury that led to her dying. Now, sort of what the follow through will be with an independent investigation on her family's behalf. But we're going to play some of that sound for you to perhaps put you in the shoes of perhaps the sense of urgency, the panic and the danger in trying to get this woman, Tyra Adams, some help. So we'll be back with that and a couple other stories to round things out here in the Wave News Extra live stream. We'll be right back. Welcome back into this last part of the Wave News Extra live stream. Tyra Adams, the name of the woman who was killed after what happened with a Louisville Metro garbage truck earlier this month. And we're learning some more details about what happened because if you remember, sort of the initial information we're able to confirm was this happened to her in an alley by Muhammad Ali Boulevard on Valentine's Day. Family attorney Stephanie Rivas says she was picked up with the trash by a garbage truck around 26th and Muhammad Ali Boulevard, then dropped near a convenience store. We were there to shoot some video of that particular corner. And Rivas going as far as to say, her firm has been doing an independent investigation parallel to the one the city is doing, but that anonymous witnesses told her they saw it happen. Mayor Craig Greenberg describing, yes, the truck picked Adams up because she was among the bags of trash. She then walked into a store with blood coming from her nose and mouth, unable to talk. Someone in the store called 911, but then unfortunately the tragedy of Adams dying at the hospital. We're now hearing some of the information being told to 911 call takers, to the dispatch. Want to warn you, some of the details might be pretty alarming, but this was one such exchange with a dispatch call taker and a woman who was describing what was happening to Tyra Adams.
Tell me exactly what's happening. A woman came in, she doesn't have any shoes on, she's beat all this, she's filthy, and she's hollering, help, help, help. And is that her yelling in the background? Yes, yes, Okay. yes. So she's awake and breathing. Okay, is she responding normally? Yes, 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 yes. But she is looking pretty rough, rougher than I've ever seen her. Okay, is she changing color? I mean, she's probably scared to death. I believe it because she is, she's on her last leg. I'm telling you, she's been out here.
And that was just, some of the stuff where we could make out kind of just how dire the situation was. Whatever does come of these investigations, as I always like to say, we'll let you know when we're able to report that, send it straight to your phones, put it up on wave3.com. And just, it's a story that we're going to be following to see what else does come of it and how exactly this all happened. As we do round out perhaps the last stories for tonight, we also want to look at this upcoming celebration of history and community. It's an event acknowledging the work that's happening to preserve the block and this part of what was Muhammad Ali's childhood home. There's going to be a barbecue celebrating the cleanup and revitalization of the alley behind his old house. It's going to be coming up at the Grand Avenue Alley around South 32nd and Lewis Coleman Jr. Drive. There will be food, time to connect with people who want to meet up and discuss, the history of this place and of Ali, to learn about local resources. This childhood home of his, along with neighboring properties, were all listed for sale for about $1.5 million back in June of 2024. But you can read much more about what the details will be if this is something you're interested in going to check out. It'll be on wave3.com. The last thing we'll show you tonight is something we're looking forward to shining a little bit of a spotlight on the Wave News at 11 newscast. But if you've ever heard of something called the Penguin Project, it seems it's an opportunity for folks living with Down syndrome who maybe would like to spread their artistic wings. This is a program inviting them to learn what it's like to, be part of a theater production and go through the choreography training, the monologue training, building up that confidence and wanting to express themselves artistically. We stopped by earlier today at Sacred Heart, and Executive Director for the School of Arts, Kathy Davis, here sort of explains how the performers are being supported there in real time by their performance, by their peers who are themselves are actors or dancers, and kind of how special this is, knowing that this is going to be the first of its kind production behind this Penguin Project for the Louisville community.
So the way the Penguin Project is set up, they have Penguin pals or Penguin peers that work with them. And so we have students from Sacred Heart Academy and some of the other schools in the region. Like one of our students you interviewed already is from YPAS. So yes.
And tell me, they learn the lines, they learn the dance moves, but and they're going through the show, but they're only going to deliver a line when?
When the penguin student with Down syndrome freezes up, if they get nervous on stage, if they look out and see all the lights and can't do it, then they step up next to them and we'll encourage them to do it with them or do it for them.
So by having that palette really kind of, it really supports our students.
Yes.
So we want people to be involved in arts and break
Yes.
down some of those barriers
Yes.
that would prevent a parent or a student from doing that.
Exactly. So the whole point is really that essence of community. And that's one of our core values here on campus too, which made it so organic to who we are as an organization, was to build community no matter who they are.
And so right now the cast is preparing for this performance of Annie Jr., the performers, their peer mentors, between the ages of 14 and 25. They're getting ready for a performance in June. About 10 of those Penguin peers, as Kathy Davis was talking about. Again, the first of its kind performance with this project for Wave Country. And we'll want to share a little bit more of this behind the scenes rehearsal look with you coming up at 11. A reminder, because I always say this here from the Now Studio chair, wave3.com, the best resource to always check up with, as we're live streaming, but breaking news, original reporting, what's going on in your neck of the woods, the best resource. And this is also the stuff that we will send to your phones, your devices as push alerts when you download the Wave News app and the Wave Weather app. And a reminder that we'll be here at 11, the storm tracking team, letting you know just how nice it's going to be, at least for Saturday, to make this a beautiful combo to start our weekend, the last weekend of February 2026. A reminder, you can always connect with us on social media. Send us your emails. There's the stories. We want to make sure we're checking in with you to see what is going on. That's going to do it for us here for Wave News Extra. I'm Jose Sosaya. We'll be back on Monday night for the next edition for whatever the new breaking news is and original stories to let you know we are working on that. We'll see you then. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. Take care.